Hi everybody, my name's Dominic Palazzolo and I'm the founder of Marvelous Molds, and today I have some exciting, innovative new products to show you. In particular, I'd like to show you a new sim press, and we call this the Tri-Weave Sim Press, and it is our attempt to really capture the 3D geometric optical illusion effects and textures that you can put on cake. It seems to be a real trend now, and it can be very, very exciting if you use it properly. So why don't I go ahead and show you what this pattern looks like. So here I have the sim press, and I've already filled it with fondant. Now remember, a sim press is a fondant panel maker, and we use it to apply panels to a cake in order to apply your fondant on the cake. All right? So what I'm going to do is just loosen it, and I really would like you to take a look at this. There you go. Now, we call this the Tri-Weave, and it's actually a hexagonal tri-weave geometric texture. And if you really look at it, you'll see that it kind of pops out, and you can see these beautiful corners. So that is one of our new styles in order to lend a very cutting-edge geometric look to your cakes. So why don't I show you how that works. I have my empty sim press here, and I have my sheeted fondant, and I'll just show you the basics on how to use this. Okay. This is cornstarch that I'm rubbing into the surface just so I make sure that I get a, avoid the sticking that can happen with fondant. Okay? Watch what I'm doing now. I am actually pushing with my fingertips, and I'm pushing the fondant into this mold. And I can really feel the fondant chasing down into the really deep detail. Now, any of you who have used molds before, a lot of molds have very, very slight details. I want to tell you that the sim press doesn't fool around. Okay? We incorporate details that you can see on a cake from across the room. We're all about making you famous, okay? So we build these details really, really prominently, and what you got to do is get used to really pushing that in real well. Now, if you look, you can see that there's this trimming blade. That's a patented attribute of Marvelous Molds, and you see I'm not pressing really hard. I'm just going over it with a rolling pin, and boom. Look at that. It's just trimmed it into a perfect panel that's 4 inches tall, 6.28 inches long. Now, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to look, and this looks really good, but if you didn't press in a certain area, you would find that it's kind of light looking, and then you can press that down. Okay? Okay, now this is important to remember about a sim press. We're going to put these panels on a cake, and we build the sim presses so that the panels go together in a seamless fashion. So as you can see, I'm pulling that fondant back and creating a back angle on the edges and around the bottom and the top. How can you tell if a What is the bottom? Well, notice we do have an unmolding lip on 3 sides, but the bottom doesn't have one. So that way you can always know the proper orientation of your Simpress. Okay, so let's bring in this cake. And as you can see, I've already got one of those panels on there, because what I want to do is show you how cool it is to line this thing up and put it right on. So I'm going to take some shortening, and I'm going to apply it to the back of the fondant in the Simpress. You don't need a lot. Something to remember is that when using a Simpress, you don't necessarily have to take your crumb-coated cake and cover it with fondant first. Imagine this cake is simply a crumb-coated cake that's been refrigerated, and what we're doing is we're applying our fondant to the outside with our panels. That saves you the time of rolling out fondant, draping it over the cake, using a fondant smoother, and all of that. So what you would do is, I'm just going to kind of loosen the edges and get a really good feel for the fact that, I know this is going to come right out. Now I'm doing this backwards. All right, so it's kind of hard for me to see, but I'm doing this backwards so you can see the process. I'm just parallel parking this baby in there, okay? Just pushing it in there until it meets up with the previous panel. And I'm taking that side and pressing it down, and then I'm just applying the panel to the surface of my cake, okay? Now, I don't want you to think this is just for fondant. You can do this with modeling chocolate. You can do this with ganache. You can even do this with buttercream if you refrigerate it and then put it on the cake. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just kind of pressing it in there, okay? Some of you have watched my videos. You say, you're pressing pretty hard. This is a cake dummy, okay? And it really, really moves. So I'm holding it in the back, doing it backwards so you can see it. So trust me, you don't need a lot of pressure in order to apply a really nice panel. So what I'm going to do now is pull that right off. Okay, and then I'm going to just turn it here, because what I want to do is I just want to gently close the gap. Let me take a look at that. All right, so you tell me where those two went together. Look how beautifully this wonderful pattern goes together and creates this fabulous texture on a cake. Okay, so for those of you who are really in the business and you do a lot of high volume work, what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you another way of applying those panels to the cake. So what I did was I used my Simpress and I made panels ahead of time, and I kept them in the refrigerator. And when it comes time to apply my fondant to the cake, I just want to show you how fast this can be. So this is just refrigerated. It's still pliable enough to be applied to the cake, but it's firm enough so that you can just handle it. So what I'm going to do is just put my shortening on the back. Okay, of course you can use any type of glue that you want. You can use buttercream, whatever you use in order to apply fondant to your cake. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I've got the right orientation here. Okay, and now I'm just going to put that baby right in there and put it on. Look how fast that is. Just imagine if you had a big wedding cake. Just think how fast you can just cruise along, just like I'm doing here. And I am putting these beautiful panels on the cake, not even really thinking hard about it, not really expending a lot of effort. Okay, let me make sure my pattern is correct. Okay, and so now I just pop it in there. Okay, so we have our panels. Why don't we just take a look at this beautiful cake? Okay, but as you can see, we have a gap. All right, so let me explain something. The sim presses are made 6.28 inches long, and if you have an even diametered cake, it's going to go and you'll have 4 panels that go around and meet perfectly. The thing that we discovered is that you got to be right on 8 inches, and the slightest variance creates a gap like this. So I've gotten a lot of customer questions from customers, and so what we did was we made our cakes just a little off so that we would have this gap, because I want to show you what you can do with a sim press. Okay, so here's what I recommend you do. You have this gap, and you take a panel, and I'm going to try to do this so you can see it. Okay, so just be patient with me here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that panel right in there, and then I am going to mark maybe right just a little bit past where it meets the other panel, crossing the gap. Okay, all right, now I can see my mark here, and I'm just going to make that a little bigger. Okay, so we're going to make sure that this sim press is oriented the same. Let's get that right in the center of our overhead camera. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the sim press so that it lines up right with my mark that I put on the panel. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press my sim press, and what I did was I made a mark, and then I'm going to take my scalpel, and I'm just going to cut along my mark. Now, let's just pull that off. Okay, and we'll apply our shortening to the back. Okay, let's puzzle piece that in here, and let's see what it looks like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put that right in there. Okay, you can see what I'm doing, right? And we're going to bring the panels together. Okay, and now we filled the gap. Let me take a look at this. We filled the gap really well. Is it absolutely perfect? Not really. But I'll tell you what, it looks really good on a cake, and for, to have that, seam that you always have on the back of a cake, that looks really, really fine. Okay? So that's the way that you can use a sim press in order to fill gaps that you are eventually going to have on your cakes, and do it in a way that nobody's really going to notice. Okay, now I'm going to put this aside because I want to remind you and show you things that you can do with your Simpress that go beyond cakes, okay? So you can take a round cutter that will be just the perfect size to put on top of a cupcake, and you can put it on a cupcake and get a beautiful detail like that. Isn't that cool looking? So you can get 2 of these out of each Simpress, which is really cool. I'd like to show you something else. Don't forget that you can take a Simpress panel, unmold it, and cut it any way you want. So what I'm going to show you here is a really beautiful border that you can make from the Tri-Weave Simpress. You may decide that you don't want this texture on the entire cake, but it would be really, really cool around the bottom. So that is a border that you can make, and of course it goes together seamlessly, and that would look fantastic. Okay, now let me stay right there. I'll be back. I'm going to show you something else. Okay, there is the Tri-Weave in gold. I got to tell you, there's a really special look to this. When you use metallics on this type of a design, you are really bringing out all of the attributes that are going to make it fantastic on a cake. And here is silver. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that these work beautifully in metallics. And then let me remind you that we designed Simpresses so that all the sides go together. So you can see, and you've already seen on the cake, how all the sides are meant to go together. But let's say that you have a cake that's rather high. Okay, well, we're going to take and put them on top of each other, and the design matches. Okay, also on the bottom, the design matches. Okay, so you can also go sideways. Go ahead and cut this off, and you can go sideways up a cake. That'll give you 6.28 inches. So those of you who are making barrel cakes or cakes that are larger than 4 inches, you can use these panels to cover the entire side. Also, any of you who are using shallower cakes, you can simply trim the panel to fit. So that is the Tri-Weave Simpress. It's available right now, and I think that it's really going to help you just apply a with it look to your cakes that people are really, really going to notice. So I'm Dominic Palazzolo with Marvelous Molds. Stay tuned. We've got new styles coming out. Join our newsletter, and you'll be the first to know. Thanks for watching.